Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the day two of SFCL's Swiss stage. We get to see the second half of everybody in this league play. We got to see 8 teams play yesterday. Got a good look, but we get to look at the rest of the teams today.
Yeah, it should be good fun. I mean, it's always nice in the early stages as well, right? Because some of these teams have come through our qualifiers, others have been invited in. And so seeing how they kind of pair up against each other, it's been interesting to see, right? I mean, for the most part, we've had some somewhat expected results with some of the invited teams looking a little bit stronger, a little bit scarier. And I think as the season goes on, as we get more of our games played with the rest of the teams, and as they kind of get to play against each other as well, we will start to see teams really finding their footing in the league. And that's when we start to see the really great games against some of those top teams that you're expecting to win. Maybe those upsets creep in as well.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the Swiss stage kind of be a thing for, right before playoffs, just because we really get to see some of these teams tested early. Because, with the normal group play, you don't always see it. Some, great teams like maybe Arial Academy, for instance, who is our first game today, they may not get tested. They might not play a great team, but hey, maybe they go 2-0. They'll play another 2-0 team that's, just as good. So they get tested early, and that's not something we always see. So it really makes for a lot of good games early on in the league. And even these first games yesterday, there were a bunch of close games, and I expect today to really be similar. I mean, you look at it. I mean, I casted that 6 Karma Outlast game. That game was wild, to say the least. And there are just a couple games today that just look fantastic as well. So it's just, so far, I mean, this might be the most competitive season of SFCL, really, the way that I see it.
Yeah, I think you've been hitting the money on, right? And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the teams today, how they're going to play. Arial Academy, our first game. Obviously, the champions from seasons 4 and 3, with 2 of those members still being on the squad, but 3 new faces joining them. So it will be interesting to see how that sort of affects their performance throughout this season. And Team Mystic, the other squad, coming through our open qualifiers on the second qualifier, so the second time around they made it in. They were in our top 6 placements. They didn't have to play the first round of day 3. Get to play just one best of 3 that they had to win to qualify, and they won it 2-0. So pretty comfortable victory for them to make it into the league, and it'll be interesting to see what they're going to bring in terms of giving the upper squads a bit of a fight, a bit of a run for their money.
Yeah, Mystic are kind of known as very mechanically good players, and they're going to need that today for sure against such a stacked Arial Arise Academy roster. It's just, the changes that they made, you'd think with how the team has been for so long that if they were to lose 3 players, that the roster would kind of take a dip. But to me, you look at that roster, it's just as scary. You got Kento, who's coming basically straight off of Pro League. He last played at the Sweden Major, and then you pick up Amp and Reverse straight from S2, and both of those players as well have been so good. I mean, I've played with both, and it's just, the roster is just so scary, and this really is their first time that we're actually seeing them, and I've just heard such good things from how they're performing behind the scenes, so I'm excited to see them on really their first game day. And Mystic themselves, some of them players over there are going to have some really good games if they're going to really make this a good one.
Yeah, it is going to require some pretty monster performances. And, I mean, you know what? It's never out the question. And that's one of the really cool things about Siege, just the way you end up. The games unfold, right? Maps play a big part of it, how players are, just the form on the day. And the Swiss will give teams an opportunity to bounce back if they have a slightly slower start. Or, like Mystic here, if you're going up against a team like Arial Rise Academy, who are expected to be one of the favorites coming in, you still have a chance to bounce back, to recover, to play some other teams and make your way back up to the top to get to those 3 wins that will qualify you for the playoffs, right? It's going to get 3 wins in the Swiss, 3 losses, you're eliminated, 3 wins, you're through. The last game is going to be that best of 3. So there's lots of opportunities for some great games, and this is one that I'm looking forward to see. You mentioned Arial Rise Academy, a team that has changed, but has come in with some really strong players. How they're going to work together, scrims are one thing. You've got to be able to do it on game day if you're going to secure wins and you're going to get further into the event.
Yeah, and I think a big thing right here for Mystic is those map bans that we do have ready for you, and it's going to be a big deal for them just to see that where they go, because I expect Arial Rise Academy to have a very deep map pool, as you can see from that Oregon and Villa ban. Getting rid of those default maps pretty early. Club also first ban from Mystic, so those default maps going off the board quite early, and we go to Chalet, which Arial Rise do start on that attack, which in my eyes, is the favorable side on Chalet. And I do have to ask you, what are your thoughts kind of on the way that the map bans went?
I think Chalet will be an interesting start for both of these squads. I think you're looking at teams with lots of strong abilities in their fragging, and Chalet really leans into that, right? Like you mentioned, it's one of those attacker-sided maps. You get a lot of agency with how quickly you can sort of put pressure onto defensive setups, lots of windows close to important positions that you want to get to, as well as just the ability to run into the building from quite a few different spots. I'd be surprised if we didn't see things like, I mean, if Nook doesn't get banned, I'd be surprised if we don't see it really coming to the forefront with some cheeky little plays through the basement, as well as things like Mavericks or Ashes that just try and take advantage of some lapse in judgment from the defensive side of things. And so I think the attacking team for both games, half of the game, are the one that you really need to pay attention to shake up the momentum.
Yeah, and one thing that I always say, practically every single every single cast is, especially on maps that are attacker sided, it's going to be really important to set the tone. Ariel Rise Academy, the way that they've been so good is they've kind of made teams play into their style, their pace, and that's going to be really important, is kind of dictating that. Because of Mystic, to me, the only way that they can really make this a close one is if they can be very comfortable the entire game, the way that they're playing, the pacing, the operators, basically everything they need to be in control of the game to try and kind of equalize, level the playing field a little bit. And if they can't get that done early, I think they're just going to be in trouble.
Well, the ban's coming through. The Nook is gone, so we're not going to see any of that sort of tomfoolery in the basement, sneaking past the cameras. Ying gone as well, a ban that I think is starting to become more and more common. Makes a lot of sense. Candela's a little bit difficult to fight back against through. Yeah, you got things like the Warden, which are growing in popularity, and you see a lot of players will run. You get the MPX or the 1.5 is always a bit juicy, but for the most part, I think I get it, right? You don't really want to have to deal with. Azami, look, I think Azami's just a broken operator. You ban it. It's just a thing you do now. You start on attack. I think you should just ban it.
Yeah, she's so powerful on Chalet, especially.
Yeah.
And the Ying band going down, and she's very, very powerful on that bar attack. So kind of making that, and Azami also going down as well is so powerful on bar. So maybe Ariel Arise have kind of decided that bar is their one attack that they at least maybe seem human on. I wouldn't say struggle with. I doubt this team is really struggling, but maybe that's the one that they're not as confident on, and they kind of make those two bans to help out with those attacks. But you see that basement hold first, and you're going to have to see Mystic really extend out on the map. Don't give Ariel Arise anything on the map. Really pressure points on the map to make sure that Ariel Rise doesn't get anything for free, because, I mean, they're going to use that space pretty easily.
I am a little bit intrigued by the Brava coming out so early on. It seems like we had this yesterday as well, right? A lot of teams really like bringing this Brava, even sometimes when there's not a massive amount of utility that you're looking at and thinking, like, this is really great to steal for the attacking lineup. Default cameras are always going to be pretty powerful, and there's some really strong ones on Chalet, especially in the basement. You can steal that one away and gather a little bit of information around. Trying to drop the grenade through the drone hole to get rid of the bandit batteries will be successful on the second attempt, but the trick coming through is just so clean from Skunks. Does he get the second one? No way. Okay, they back up. But, oh my, he stood in it, Joe. I was like, okay, he can't commit to the thermite. The bandit's coming through. The bandit just died.
Yeah, and that's what I was worried about with that Goyo canister, just from where it was, is he can't bandit trick the right side, but they do get one back. Big guy on the roam on that Oryx does get a pick back, and the wall will be able to get open, however, but Reverse still trying to deal with this attacker upstairs. Kento does find one. Kirk comes up the main stairs, finds one. Ashen gets aim key, and they do know that one player is coming down. They have a 2v1 on the site at the moment. Ashen starting to push the site, finds this 1v1, not able to find the kill quite yet, but all the players of Ariel Arise Academy are now starting to hit the site. Kirk taking some damage, Ashen taking the space, the plant going down from Amp on that garage, but everyone's taking so much control. Reverse hits the deck, but traded instantly, and Ashen finds another one on the round. Ariel Arise Academy, a beautiful first round and a nice adjustment to end up taking that site.
Yeah, and just a pretty solid movement by them once they recognized that they had the trades, they had the space that was being made by that, right? I mean, there was no waiting from Ashen. He was very happy to push down blue, to start to look for these aggressive angles, and with reverse also pushing in aggressively, looking to try and take space through the main garage. That's where it starts to come together. The Goyo sort of stuck between two places. You trade it out pretty nicely, and you play for that final kill in the post-plant situation. So ultimately, really clean from Arial Academy. Very nicely worked. I'm still a little bit baffled by Skunks there, and I would have liked to see Amp recognize, maybe with the Goyo canister going off, that's the side of the wall that you can reach out to, unless it was flamed itself from outside. I didn't see it. Maybe the snow obscured it from our perspective.
It was a little bit, but I don't think it covered the entirety of that.
I think you can maybe try. I don't know, but either way, nice little freebie onto the bandit. Did lose one upstairs, so that's always something to keep in mind. That this roam game is probably something that Mystic are going to continue as the map goes on, as it evolves, especially with it's no longer Dude on the RX, but it's Skunk. So just changing up some of the operator picks a little bit to give them nice to see a little bit of flexibility from the players.
Yeah, and that Solus is coming out, something we didn't see on that first round, which I really should see if you're going to be roaming that much to try and spot some openings, to try and take advantage of anything, but not what was done. And Arial Academy going for this direct take, this solar side, which can be a great take. It doesn't require much control, but it does really mean that you can't really make too many mistakes on this attack, otherwise it's going to be a problem.
Bravo, yoinking away that camera. Again, a pretty valuable one to have, right? Gives a lot of insight over the rest of the top floor. You can see lobby if anyone's coming for those rotations, and just nice to take a bit of tool away from the defenders. Ashen's already in though, Joe. He's on the top of main stairs. I don't think they're aware. The couple sprays indicate they maybe are, as Amp walks in behind and grabs one for himself. Kento does die to the Capcan trap, but Ashen making sure he's not caught up by Kirk on the flank. Gonna grab one back, dude. Okay. Knows Ashen's in jungle. They're gonna land a long shot. Now trying to challenge longer, but is gonna back away now, Joe.
Yeah, and they're picking up. They do now have site control, and I'm not sure that they're aware of that. The upstairs is in that control of Mystic, but given that, they can put bomb down in kitchen if they want. I don't believe there's any information inside of site, no BPs or anything to work with. So at any point, Ambi can just try and take into site here and try and get this open. There is a C4 that Spider does have to work with to be able to make some pulls above kitchen, which he's going to do just that. A lot of area now for Mystic to work with, and as long as that player is alive inside of main lobby, it's going to cause some problems. But Reverse is actually walking up these solar stairs, as well as Ambi. They're going to try and take some fights here. Spider has a big responsibility, finds the first, not able to find the second, but Skunky does get his trade. Ashen left in the 1v2 with a minute to work with, no case, but Skunky has fallen off from the upstairs, and I don't think Ashen is 100% aware. He's going to try and work site 5-0 at the moment, and he's going to need to find these last two players if he's going to find the round win. That Cam coming in huge for them right now with that information, and Ashen should be able to put the bomb down right here without any problems if he wants. There's no rotate, no holes for anywhere but the information. He's going to try and act on it, not able to find the kill. That information is still there, though. He can put down the bomb if he wants, but he's still going to try and find a kill. With that information, he's going to know if either of these players are going to push that bomb so close to being put down. He finds the first one. The information's out, but he's not able to find the kill. Skunky clutches out the 1v1. Ashen so close to finding that round win, but not able to do it again. Mystic tie us up at 1.
Interesting decision to try and retake this space above. The kitchen hatch being reinforced does give them a little bit more safety, right? Because you don't have to worry about players dropping down or having this giant opening in the floor they can look through to control a lot of kitchen, but still feeling, leaving that Capcan, leaving that Oryx above with things like the Bailiff, where they can start to apply some destructibility to the floor to shoot us down below. If they have information inside of sight, you want to avoid that as much as you can. I get it. And it was a nice attempt here for the retake. They just weren't expecting the Oryx to be lurking around inside a bathroom. And ultimately, having the ability to swing out for the trade is what really held things together there for Team Mystic. And a good job playing patiently in the 2 versus 1 at the end. It's really good to see players have this sort of discipline just to know we can wait out this clock. We don't have to force a move into Arial Academy. We can wait for them to commit to making that plant. It worked out really well for them, so great job.
Yeah, and I feel like it comes down to a lack of information maybe at that part of the round, and Can't really afford that too much. Obviously, they can play their gun skill sometimes, but still, running in blind, not the best strategy if you're going to end up taking those fights. It kind of lost them that right there, and they are going Master here, and this is a very extensive setup here, Dollar.
Yeah, I think Master's an interesting one, right? Obviously, when the map first came in, it was the one that everyone loved, and it's been yo-yoing all over the place in terms of priority. I do like to see already the Nomads setting up air jabs to protect themselves from some runouts and apply that pressure onto Big Window, because again, it does look like they want to go for this sort of Solarium-sided take. That seems to be where a lot of this pressure is coming in from. Although already you're seeing Bravo just stealing away these default cameras. It, first of all, denies information, which is great. But secondly, gives it back to them, which is just even better. That's why things like Mozzie are just so good with the pests. A couple early drones being shot away, and so far, nothing too aggressive coming up from Arial's Academy. Ashen holding this angle could net him a nice little freebie if he's careful, but it's going to be Kento the first to fall, jumping into the classic Frostbat in the bathroom. Spider might be able to finish this off if they're aware that the down has come through, and it's also Case, Joe.
It is Case, but I don't think these players know. Skunky, that's a smoke going down. Ashen knows where this player is if he wants to push it, but the Ash is already pushing as well. Reverse, getting some team damage right there, but Spider, none the wiser, doesn't know that he's there, doesn't find the kill. Ampy goes down, big guy, another big kill, but Kento does end up getting picked back up, but Sight Control is in the way of Arial Rise Academy. Kento putting that bomb down, gonna decide differently. A little bit wiser there. Kirk, a beautiful shot. Inky downstairs. The Soulless, they have to find this kill on the Spider up here. Kirk trying to do what he can to try and stay alive, but Inky flanking up. The information's there, but Amp not able to find the kill. Inky, a huge 1v1 win, and Kento left by himself in another 1v2.
Spots out the diffuser going down. Do they have the impacts to make the line of sight? That's all an impact would be needed to finish with how low Kento is on HP, but instead just giving that information away, dropping it to try and bait out the Solace. This could be massive if it works out for them. Spray's coming through, giving the position away. Kento can go for the 1v1 and comes out on top. Now moving around, picks up the diffuser again and looking to plant it on the table so they can't be shot off. But Enki already starting to walk up the back of the solar stairs, looking to draw the long line of sight, but the plant goes down, able to get off the table before it comes available and holding the shots. Just expecting this rotation to come through. A fantastic job by Kento. So carefully aware of how Solace's gadget works and uses it to mislead Mystic.
Dude, Kento is so smart, man. That's such a good play as well. And it wasn't necessarily just the Soulless, it was more so the comms from Soulless. He didn't use it to try and kill the Soulless. He knew that he would have baited out the Orcs to try and have to push to make sure that that bomb goes down. And Mystic not really completely aware, like you said, of how Soulless's gadget works. And Kento able to clutch out that round in Arial Rise Academy. That's 2 rounds right there, the last 2 attacks that have been close. And you think if Ashen can win out that 1v2 with that information, they find themselves up 3-0, and Mystic have to do better at closing out these rounds, because these rounds are starting to get close. But if you're going to beat a team like Arial Rise Academy, these rounds have to go your way.
And now back to the basement again. A site they have already won their attack onto. Skunks on the Cade this time, so I don't think we're going to see a similar mishap happen with any potential friendly fire with the Dolphins. Oops. Things happen.
No!
On the bright side, comes back to us. Comes back to us, Joe.
Beautiful face. But they were going back to that basement, and they did not win that site the first time, and they're kind of forced to go back. So, to kind of keep it brief, what kind of adjustments do you think that Mystic is going to make sure that Arial Rise Academy can't really just coast right on in the site again?
I mean, the first one's the obvious one, right? Don't die to your own Vulcan canister. That's a good start. But I think on a more serious note, for me, the big thing was just when the gaps were found by Arial Rise Academy, when they recognized, hey, there's no one watching blue, Ashen's very comfortable walking down. Hey, we trade out main stairs, we move in very quickly. From the side of Team Mystic, I just want to see them being a little bit more cautious, or have more ways prepared to cover these potential walk-ins, right? Have a piece of utility deployed down blue to give you some notice when Ashen's walking down, right? Yeah, cams are great, but the default cam will be shot out. They might sneak past it. Just check a proximity. Probably have operators who can bring it. Maybe chuck a camera watching down on blue, a BP at the bottom of the corridor's a common thing to do just to make sure that no one's going to sneak up and try and catch you off guard. And with the lineup they're bringing, they can probably slip one in there somewhere, right? You grab it on that Jaeger, it's not going to be too much of a problem for you. I think the breach is very likely to get opened up this time around, and it will be interesting to see how that changes the Arial Rise Academy's attack, though, because we didn't see them need it. They just walked in, they went up to the window, they came down main stairs, they found the kills that they needed to. How does that change with a breach open? You have a little bit more control to watch some of these longer lines of sight. How did Team Mystic deal with that? I think that's the more interesting thing, and honestly, I'm not too sure, because we haven't really got to see it play out yet.
Yeah, and they actually do have an Oryx for those proxies if they want to chuck one on blue. As you kindly noted, I've received word that the server did die, but don't worry, we're going back in shortly. Nothing crazy, not too much of a delay, I hope. But I think the main thing is right now is Arial Rise Academy. When we saw that in that last round, even though it was close, I don't think that round is really close at all if Kento doesn't hit that frost mat early in the round. I think they kind of wiped through sight, get a couple more kills. They don't have to worry about picking him back up, going to grab that case. Can more play around him. As you saw, Amp was the one that was playing cutoff on piano from deep. It forced him to move to a different spot so that he could go pick up Kento and take kind of that spot. So they're doing a good job at seeing where the openings are. It's just if it goes their way when they do it. Because they had that opportunity once again on that kitchen round. They just weren't able to capitalize. And that's kind of going to be the story of this map, I feel, is can Arial Rise Academy convert on what they're seeing? Yeah,
I mean, like, as much as you can say, if Kento gets in there, he gets a couple kills, right? Spider is not ready for him to be running around the corner of bathroom doorway. Same time, mate. Getting caught by a frost mat is like not the way to go about it, right? These are the things you need to just make sure you get that information on. You jump through a window on Chalet. If you haven't scanned the frost, I get it. If you know that the frost is there, you're always checking for it. If you haven't thrown out the window, because the chances of it being under there are higher than you would like to think, especially on bathroom window. I feel like this is one of the windows that you see it done on a lot because there's often not a player in a position to watch it. So at the very least, that frost mat is going to give you an unnoticed when they shoot it, or a giant crunching sound when they fail to do so and walk on into it instead. But again, the thing for Arial Rise Academy on that round was that they had the cover, right? They had the nade coming in from big window, got the kill onto the smoke. They had Ash already just running up the back staircase, able to do a bit of damage and find the picks that they needed to make up for it. So even when they are showing these falters, they're doing a great job of having other players pick up the slack. Again, it's finding gaps and just jumping for them very quickly. Team Mystic being a little bit too frequently, they're opening up. They're giving these openings to them. And we need to see them tighten it at least a bit.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, though, especially that last master attack, there were so many players playing cutoff for Arial Rise, so many angles being covered from deep, and not necessarily easy fights for Mystic to win. So they have to try their best to try and isolate a pick without, taking those fights that aren't going to be easy to win, because you have to try and find a way to make these gunfights 50-50. You know how good these players can be with their mechanical skill. It really comes down to taking these smart fights, because if they're taking these silly, goofy fights, I mean, you're not going to, you're not going to win these fights all the time. So it's not a sustainable thing to do. If you take those 50-50 gunfights with the gun skill that you have, a much better situation to be in. They're actually going to not bring the Bandit Galu, is something that I just noticed as I was speaking.
Yeah, that Cade instead. So still the opportunity to trick out the wall, and it's a Thatcher coming in, so that does become a little bit less likely. Both those claws already deployed. Imagine one will be on the hatch inside of Connector just to try and keep that locked down for a little bit. But Ashen will be able to get this breach opened a little bit quicker. Still, Kento, again, going to be trying to deny some of these default cameras. That will help with just reading away some information. Potentially a Capcan trap. You can see the two lurk in the bottom corner there of the Connector wall. You can steal one of those, that's always a pretty good laugh. But now it's about how do they clear skunks off of this main stairs. And they get the breach open, they're already rotating away. So, clearly showing they're very happy to come back to it later when it becomes more relevant for their execute.
Yeah, definitely. But all the control is really just going to be on this bar side, library side of the map. And Skunky's going to have to try and waste some time here as well as Big Guy. But they're actually not really pushing this top floor. They might actually try and converge on this player inside of Dining. it's a possibility here, and that player going down would be a huge thing in this round because that player in Dining is really the one stopping them from taking all this control. But Spider does find one. He finds a second. Ashton goes down, and he's gonna flee the scene. Ambi tries to get for that trade, but he's not able to do it. Spider too quick on getting out, and Mystic find themselves in a 5-3 advantage.
Yeah, that's a good start for a defensive round, right? You take away the Thermite, the Thatcher, still got the Thermite, and there's no denial on this breach. They can get that open on up and be able to grab one quickly, but Kirk making sure things don't slip away from them too much. Reverse on the hatch above, eventually ready to drop, just checking for the drone information, but he pulls out his camera. Who comes slipping back in? It's Spider, just crawling in to claim his third. Now Amp alone in the 1 versus 4. A minute left on the clock, so, you know, you never say never, but it's not looking very likely. Pulls out the mag, has one bullet left. Got to finish that reload. Finish the reload, and looking for the first one. He's still lurking around the corner, but big guy on the punch hole. He gets the final kill.
And he does just that. A nice play from Spider to kind of go crazy upstairs. That's a 1v3, and he gets away really with all 3 players. And a great pick. Kirk finds one on site on Ambi, who was trying to actually push off of that one pick that he had. And to be honest, if he wins that fight on that player blue, maybe we have a different outcome to that round, but not able to win that fight. Kirk coming up big, and Mystic 2-2 on their defenses thus far, and not a bad position all considering.
Yeah, I mean, that round, again, just big off the Spider playing in the area, not checked down properly. Arial Academy doing pretty poor job of making sure that they have the drones coming in to spot him, and he punishes them for it very effectively. Bit of help from the Capcan trap to secure the kill onto the Thatcher, right? The early damage done, then you get the couple of shots in afterwards. But pretty nicely done. And now they're going to return to the kitchen. They won this site out, but if we throw our minds back, Joe, it wasn't what I would call clean, right? They had the 3 versus 3 situation at the end. They did have that nice little retrade with, I want to say it was Big Guy on Oryx that round. Lurking around upstairs, swings from the bathroom. So definitely a good start for them. For Arial Academy, if they can once again start on solo, clear out this middle floor, then I think that's the recipe for success. It's about getting that control above first, and that's where they faltered.
Yeah, and I'm also very interested to see where that Maverick goes, and Kirk trying to do a little bit of time wasting, drone denial downstairs, trying to make sure that they're not giving away the space for free. But Big Guy goes down from Ash, and from deep, I believe he got wall banged. An unfortunate way to go down and give up that first pick. The C4 missing completely, and that's a lot of utility going out from Mystic, and a body as well, and nothing to show for an Arial Rise have the advantage.
That's a great start for them, right? And now they can start to apply this pressure on the windows above. Ambi just going to jump straight into Trophy, recognizing with a little bit of drone information ahead of him, there's no one threatening this position, can start to torch open a bit of the wall. And then you have a second teammate, Kento, nearby, just to immediately try and punish anyone caught off. Ambi going to take a little bit more damage than they would have liked in that exchange, though. And Spider going to rotate the positioning just to make sure they're keeping themselves alive, challenging down the split. This is the take for now. A little bit of pressure on West Main. Can Ashen land the kill? Of course he can.
Of course he can. Maybe the best way you possibly could have put that. And there's actually a player downstairs reverse lurking, and this is the issue with this attack. Ashen finds another kill on the round, and Kirk below gonna have to do what he can, but Skunky only can find the down on one player, leaving Kirk on his own. Position now known. Nothing really to be done as there's no vertical really on either of these sites, and Ashen gonna try and go for this kill. Kirk does find one, taking down a considerable amount of HP, and all these players going for the kill. Reverse does find it on a cheeky little hop up, and Arial Rise Academy completely dumpster that Mystic defense, and it was an interesting one at that, reinforcing both sides of the trophy wall on both areas, West Main and Kitchen. Galu, thoughts on that setup?
It's interesting, right? On one hand, it gives you a little bit more space to play in when you lose it. But the adaptation from Arial Rise Academy, right? They see the walls that are going on, they see the setup, immediately just decide, you know what, we already kind of wanted to go for trophies, or this is kind of what we were leaning to before. Let's grab a Maverick. Let's start to apply a little bit of pressure in towards kitchen, make it difficult to sit in there, and then you lose this ability to have any sort of support for your kitchen player. They become a little bit isolated because they can't really easily escape in case someone's watching on the holes. A little bit tricky. And with the way that they've double reinforced stuff as well, you can't really build that crossfire towards Solar Staircase either. So a lot of players from Team Mystic on the other side of that quad set of reinforcements become quite isolated. And we saw that when they tried to come back downstairs, right? When they tried to have the Oryx flank, immediately cut off by Bravo, who's just waiting for them to come from behind, because there's no real risk to be looking the other way. There are no holes, there's no threat, there's no danger. Arial's Academy doing a great job of recognizing what the mistake in Mystic's lineup was and what safety that they've been given intentionally or accidentally, running away with it. Again, just another great showing from Arial's Academy.
Yeah, it is, and I'm still loving that they're bringing the Brava every round. It's kind of showing how powerful Brava can be on Chalet, especially just because how much information some of those default cams get, specifically that top blue and the, the fireplace cam. Both of those cams a big deal, and they could be coming out now as well, and trying to take library this time instead of clearing through solar, and starting to go crazy earlier with this utility. Big guy not really getting anything. Ashen does find the first kill, and he's actually just going to walk into sight. Spider ends up getting that kill, and these two players on top blue and top fire still causing a nuisance over here, but I believe there's actually a player inside of sight. Mystic have forfeited all of that control. Once again, they're going to be relying on the Solus below to deny this plant, but Reverse has the cutoff for Solar Stairs, and Arial Rise so much control. Kento finding a kill, and the site control is such a big problem for Mystic. They're going to have to find a way to retake, but Fighter starting that off right now, and Inky not able to find the kill. Kento a nice shot, and Kirk making a rotate, but the cutoffs are seen from, I believe that's Amp, and the bomb's going to go down, and Spider and Kirk have a lot on their hands to deal with.
Yeah, the diffuser's down, the time's ticking away, the long angle's being watched, able to slip by Amp, although it is Spider in the background, going to be injured, and then very quickly finished off. 1 versus 2, as Kento has been injured as well. The Reverse, hiding behind the flower bed, is able to land the shots through the rotation that had been made, and ultimately go pretty undiscovered behind the little plant pot, just using it a bit of cover, a bit of camouflage. Always lovely to see players adapting to their surroundings, but a good attack in half for Arial's Academy. I think they'll be happy with a 4-2. Team Mystic, some of these rounds kind of slipping through their fingers a little bit, and them not having as much control as I'm sure they would like to be having, just off of the fact that there's some good initial picks coming through for their opponents, and that's kind of putting them in a bit of an awkward position where they aren't able to play the setups that they've been creating out fully. For the most part, their roam setups haven't been tackled directly, and that's meant that a lot of time and utility is invested off-site and then never really becomes a factor in the round as it's played out. So that has, I think, hurt them a little bit, and also showcased the strength of going for some of these solo side takes if you know how to pull them off effectively.
Yeah, and a good couple attacks as well, and then Arial Rise Academy. A couple of them were close, but, I mean, it could be a 5-1 lead, to be quite honest, and a couple of clutches were required, but they found their way over to their defenses, and Mystic, now on the attack, you're really going to see what they have in store for us for these attacks, I think, on this first round, kind of see what they're about, and I think this first round is important to try and get themselves some confidence, because a 4-3 and a 5-2 it's kind of a swing round, you know, it's kind of a big deal, because it is a big difference, a 4-3 and a 5-2. It's like that kind of sense of belief between those two score lines is completely different. And Ashen going for a peek, the aggression from Arial Rise Academy already coming out, and nothing to show for it quite yet, but that Solus should be big and looking for these run-out plays. He has impacts to work with, and I'm sure he'll impact those Claymores. It just depends on if Mystic is going to be able to react off of them well, and the wall is not able to be stopped from being open. Mystic, step 1 of this push has gone through, and not a bad start for them, and Skunky's actually found himself over here, not able to find the kill, just barely missing out on it. Reverse tries to take the fight, but he's not able to win it. Skunky gets that open pick. He actually knows as well where this player is upstairs, and Ashen does find the kill. Skunky not able to hit the shots, and a good start over here, and they're just going to completely focus to the backside as well, but without any hatch control, it's going to be a tough push for them over here.
It's interesting to see the difference in utility investment, right? We saw the Thermite before be the only hard breacher for Arial Rise, and you got the main breach open, rotate him around, and he was the one that opened the wire breach as well. The Ace giving a little bit more flexibility if they want to use other hard breaching later on into the round. But by getting this big garage open up first, you give the opportunity to walk in behind them if they're distracted, or just play for some picks. First coming through, though, going to be Amp. Taking down one, Ambi gets a second, so despite having both these hard breaches alive, with the Thatcher gone, no more utility to burn away the Mute Jammer, this main wall can't be breached. The fall off, they're not engaging anymore, right? And now Ambi looking to walk in behind them. They lose Ashen's out of sight, and they decide this is not the play they want to go for, reinforcing back upstairs towards Dining, where they have Kento waiting on the hatch for the push to come through.
And Kirk does find another one. He actually got into sight here. He has a really big opportunity to 1v1, not able to win it. Ambi finds the kill, and big guy over here in sight. 1v2, another big round for him. Something that Kento was able to win, and it's going to be cross. I think he saw the cross. Ambi takes a lot of damage right there, and trying to find this player. He knows one was upstairs and knows he has this player to deal with, and still, the information's not there, not completely aware that this player's on main, but the shots go through. He now knows the position of both players, but what is he going to do about it? He's going to take this opportunity to try and put the bomb down. Kento, Ambi, trying to make sure that they're together on this push, but they're not going to be pushing quite yet. They still have a 2v1, but now big guy has the bomb down to work with. The post-plant opportunity does get out also, and Ambi and Kento don't have information to work with. What they do, however, have is the man advantage. I think Ambi finds the spot, but big guy finds the first kill. Ambi, he heard him hit the deck, and Ambi clutches out the 1v1. Mystic not able to clutch out the 1v2 the way that Kento did on that attack, but that round got way closer than it needed to.
Oh, that's a little bit cheeky, trying to go for the prone angle. He's close enough on the door, like you mentioned. He hears him hit the deck, swings at the right height, grabs that final kill. But I'm thinking there's an opportunity. Do you back up? Do you play this timer out? And look, great job in that position to recognize, hey, we can get this diffuser down. And interesting from Arial Rise Academy, right? Because they're in that 2 versus 1. They're expecting the Thermite to be waiting to collect one of these players as they walk forward and try and get in a position to deny a refrag, right? Deny those trades. And there are lots of spots inside of the basement to do that, where you do limit the angles you're exposed to. You can just watch the blue doorway, and ultimately they didn't want to take that chance. That's what allowed the plant to go down, moving in together as a team to try and limit the clutch factor there. Very close, good attempt, didn't come through in the end. Now Arial Rise Academy, you said that was the swing round, right? 5-2 up. Seems a little bit scarier than that 4-3, and going on to Kitchen and Dining, we're still yet to see a par game in this game, Joe. So that's always a little bit interesting. It's a site, you know, I quite like it. I like seeing it. I like seeing our teams play it. But they go into what these guys feel comfortable on, not what I'd like to see. Slightly different though. They're not going to be reinforcing off all of this trophy wall, are they, Joe? They're going to be opening up a couple head height holes for themselves to just test in a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. I definitely agree with you, though. I think that round was 100% winnable, I think, if he backs up a little bit. But heat of the moment, that's not necessarily an easy thing to decide. But, I mean, it's got to be a little deflating that they were so close to winning that swing round, like we call it, and not able to come away with it. But it's still got to be a confident thing that they were that close to winning that round. And they can find it. It's got to be like they've drawn blood, I guess is the word. You can see that, you know, they're human, I guess is the word, and they've kind of had that opportunity this entire game, but it's kind of that big thing, that sense of belief, which against a team like Arial Rise Academy, you got to be able to do. I believe Kirk did spot that player, but not able to find him, and Rivers has this task of holding down the site downstairs, and Mystic, unlike Arial Rise Academy on how they took this site, they're going to be a little bit slower and methodical, waiting for their opportunity for the push. And they are slower, but not necessarily a bad thing. I think he does take some damage on this west main area, and nobody really watching it, but Mystic have to find something here.
Well, that's going to be start like they wanted to see. Big guy lands the nade onto Ambi, takes down the castle. So, not the most useful individual operator. Ashen very quick to respond, nearly finding a double, but Skunk's punishing him, taking down the Echo as well now. So 4 versus 3, that man advantage confirmed for Mystic, unless... Okay, they're going to come down a second. Aimkey, don't die just yet, mate. Let the rest of the squad get a little bit of work in the meantime. Kento looking to try and go for a run out. No one on the balcony there, so not going to catch anything as the E1D scan does come through. They're expecting to be able to take a bit more of this middle floor as they're starting to walk through it. But so far, Kento just playing things kind of slow, not giving his position away, although the drone should spot him out any second now.
Yeah, and that's a huge kill on that big window player. He's now stuck. Anything he can find here is big. He finds the first one, but Skunky gets the trade, but that's a huge kill. That is the sledge going down. That is the vertical, and they're not going to be able to get these players out of these positions. Spider going to try and get upstairs. The information is there, the drones, as long as he can use it to spot out these players. But it's just Arial Rise Academy now have the luxury to be able to play from deep, and Amp reverse the 2 players from S2, the new guys, gonna see what they can do in this clutch spot. 20 seconds left. I think they have that information that these players are outside West Main. Spider in a very important position here. He's gonna have to do some work to be able to get Skunky down, and Skunky finds the first player, can't find the kill, and finds both. Beautiful clutch, and now up 6-2 and put themselves on match point. Nice shots from him and Arial Rise Academy. A good defense and a great way to bounce back into that round.
And more importantly, Joe pushes them to that match point. And look, it's a Swiss bracket, so it's wins and losses that matter, right? As long as you get the win, you move on up. Maybe it affects your seeding for who you play next, but at the end of the day, you just get as many wins in as you can. Doing it like this comfortably, having 4-round cushion just gives you that time to guarantee you get the win. There's no stress of that overtime unless Team Mystic can pull off a very strong set of attacking rounds to finish us off, and with both of their attacks so far falling a little bit short, despite them both coming very close. The big thing for me is, even if they're finding advantages, they aren't quite able to hold on to them. We're seeing Arial Rise Academy have lots of opportunity and be given a lot of space to pull off big plays. Kento collects Aimkey, who just hop reaching through a big window through the castle barricade, grabs that one, swings around, immediately picks up a second. Look, they have the drones coming through, they have the information being on. Why aren't the players moving together to hunt down this one roamer? You deny the ability, right? If you have one walking through bathroom, one coming through closet, and one repelling in the window, sure, you lose one, but you hit him on the double swing, you make sure nothing else goes too far wrong, and you keep that man advantage. You're now looking down a 3 versus 2, which is much more comfortable than the 2 because of how kind of limited they were in that advance, right? Lion blocked out on solar stairs, didn't really have anywhere to go, but straight into the waiting arms of Ant, who, as it happened to turn out, is just good enough to grab both of you. So, I don't know. A little bit uncomfortable.
Oh, I love this. Oh, I love this. He's going to blast out this window. A little bit late, however, the call will be there, I think, that they know what they're going for here is the second that guy goes on that single window repel, should have run out, but I think that push was definitely a little not as good as what Arial Rise Academy really did. They didn't have anybody on piano window. Maybe K9 is a spot that player could be. Ashton does go for that run out, not able to find anything, and Mystic, they're kind of not putting themselves in the best spots for what they want to do, a little bit more on these default side of things, but against Arial Rise, that's not something you can necessarily do. These default takes aren't going to work as well. Gonna go for the shield, does find the shield. Kirk also finds that opening pick, and Aimkey gets one himself on a sight player. 2 kills. Mystic can't possibly, 3 kills. They can't possibly mess this one up, Galu.
Oh, you've said it now, haven't you, Joe? It might have been doable until then, but once you start to speak, okay, no, I'm with you on this one. Kirk able to jump in, the flashbangs coming through the perfect unison to make sure they get the 4th kill of the round. Ambi, in the 1 versus 5, is going to die to Skunks on the window. Joe, look, you can't say these kind of things. You had me panicking that something would go wrong. Thankfully, Mystic, they had sound in the ears. They didn't hear what you were going on about, and they are able to tidy that up. And, I mean, hey, that was a lot cleaner from what we've seen from them in previous rounds. It's also probably the only time we're going to see Bar Gaming played this game. So Thanks for making it a quick one, Mystic. I'm not at all upset about that. But now they did a good job, right? They played on the windows, they were peaking for these kills, and they just kept being rewarded with them. The kill I'm really chuffed with is the Oryx. The flashbangs coming through, the push from Library, the jump in from Mezzanine. Look, that's lovely to see. The timing, great work from the team. Keep that up. Keep that up, guys.
Yeah, and we said it earlier, those 50-50 gunfights are going to be important. I think that's really mostly, I guess the word is relatable, I guess, to that entry pick. That's kind of the most important part with those 50-50 gunfights. They were able to do that. They isolated that first player. They got that first pick, and then everything fell outside of that. Chalet is a map that really heavily relies on that opening pick if you're a defender, in my opinion, just because it's a map that it really is sometimes difficult to defend. So that first pick is a big thing. You get that first kill on the attackers, and a lot of space gets opened up for those defenders. And if Mystic can continue to do well on the entries, we can see a little bit of a magical comeback, but it's just going to rely on them getting those entries. And against a team like Arial Rise Academy with the amount of gun skill and quality that they have over there, that's not going to be an easy feat. So definitely pay attention to that through the rest of this game.
No Vulcans to prevent the bandit trick to occur. So it's going to be interesting what Amp is able to produce here. The EMP coming through to get rid of the mute jammer. They can start to open up the wall, and he's picked the wrong side. Oh, that's gutting to see. You hate to see it, but hey, okay, good. So now going to have to back away. They have the breach open on up, and the rotation coming through as well. No ace in the pocket, but the gun 6 in hand doesn't suggest that they're going to be going for breaching, but rushing. Ambi in the perfect position to make sure that is going to be slowed down for a bit at least. But still looking like he might want to run into the doorway though, Joe.
Yeah, he is, but information's there. Proxy in a nice spot, and the rush not working at all. I think if they take their time a little bit right there, get that wall open, they may be able to go for that quick play, but now not able to do that, and they give up that oh so important first pick, and Skunky doesn't have that information main lobby either. And look at the places that Arial Rise Academy is. They know where really what has to be covered. Amp has that responsibility of this front side. That's kind of all he needs in reverse. Also in a spot to help out Amp on this area. And Arial know that their win condition is holding down this upstairs position. Kento and excuse me, I didn't even see who else was up there, but so many players are up there. This gen wall is going to get open, and the ways that they can win this is they have to either take upstairs or they have to push through site, and not able to do that. The players starting to come down. Arial Rise Academy find 2 kills. Both of the players on the backside. Skunky has so much to do here. All these players going straight for him. That's 4 players, and Arial ends out the game with a flawless defense. Mystic maybe not making the best decision on that attack, but Arial Rise converting on every single thing that they have. But a pretty good performance from Arial Rise Academy. But for me, Mystic holding up a pretty decent fight on what was going on over there, and nothing to really, hang their heads about. They can kind of hold their heads high a little bit. A lot to take away from with this game.
Yeah, the rounds that they looked good in, they looked very strong. That bar attack, very nice. They had a very clear indication of where each member was supposed to be, in positions to catch off any defenders that fell away. Some really nice link-up plays as well, both on the defense and the attack, to put themselves in these rounds, especially in their attacking half, where rounds were ending 2-2, 1v1s. Like, that's really good to see from them. A couple things go slightly differently. You're winning these clutches. The scoreboard looks a little bit differently. I think Arial Rise Academy definitely came out as the stronger team. And I think ultimately that's what led to them winning more of these rounds and winning more rounds in a more dominant fashion. A couple of slight decision makings coming from Mystic, and I think we could have seen a really banger game, but we had some great rounds in there. So nothing to fault them.
Yeah, but this is also something we've seen a lot from Arial Rise Academy. Basically, I feel like every single iteration of this team, just the way that they play, I think they're so confident in winning those 2v2s, those 3v3s, that they're okay with getting into those situations. And even then, when you're playing a better team, because in my eyes, obviously, Arial Rise Academy is a better team, you're going to get some 1v1s. I feel like every game that's going to be tightly contested. Some days you're winning those 1v1s, some days you're losing them. And today, Mystic lost those 1v1s, and you know, obviously, world, you win all those 1v1s. Maybe you have a 7-5, a game that goes to OT, or even a Mystic win right there. But, they don't always go your way. And Arial Rise Academy doing a great job in those situations when they did get to those points. So, I mean, they did a good job. Ashton had a great game as well.
Yep.
And, I mean, obviously, you expect to be quite honest. But we do have an interview ready, I believe, with the man of the hour I just brought up. But yeah, with Ashton. Yeah, I mean, right on cue. It's crazy. It's just the words that are going in. It's just such good timing, but that interview is ready. Ashton, I feel like we just rehearsed this yesterday. But
Yeah, we did. Because we did.
we did. It's true. The first question I have is, we're gonna get into your new players. I don't want you to compare to the past iterations of this roster you had, but how do you think having Kento, Amp, and Reverse on this team have really kind of changed your identity, or you kept your identity? How's that kind of been with these three players?
These players actually bring a lot. Like Kento, he kind of brings a lot of like experience on like what to do, like and how to like calm down, stuff like that. And like Amp and Reverse, I mean, obviously like they were like the second best team in T3, so obviously they're gonna have some sort of contributions. Obviously Reverse with the entry, Amp with his like hard bridge. That guy's a nasty clutcher. Amp will clutch. I'll tell you that he will clutch. But no comparisons. But I feel like this is like obviously a nasty roster just because like the players on paper and like our gun skill. So I feel like the way that we play, even like the way that we played before, bringing in that like old system or like keeping the system the same with these new players, like if anything, it's just we're all gonna thrive. So
Yeah, and we just talked about it at the end of that as well. Just the way that you guys have played, and from at least what I've noticed, is you guys get very aggressive, and a lot of rounds end up in 3v3s, sometimes 2v2s, and it's kind of something that we've seen from you. But is that something, obviously, that not necessarily you're shooting for, but you guys are obviously comfortable in those situations? Because most of the time, I feel like 80% of the time you guys win that. Is that kind of situations that hey, if we try and push this, we're going to lose a couple lives, but if we can find ourselves in a 3v3 situation, are you very comfortable in those spots? Is that something you're kind of shooting for?
yeah, so all of us that are usually extended out of sight, like we're probably gonna die, but like the whole point is like team play. Like you're playing off each other, you're playing with somebody, you're having that buddy system to where like no matter what you're trading out. So like I think we had like two or three like 2v2s, 3v3s that game. So like once we dwindle down their man count and like we take down those important operators, like we have those players on site who are like they have pretty good clutch potential, like Amp or someone. And then yeah, so it's like we're getting aggressive, we're getting those early picks because I feel like against like T3 teams, like these guys, like the Yuki aimers, we shut down the Yuki aimers today. Obviously we saw that like dining strat. I don't know what the hell that was. They've been running that forever, but I feel like you're not going to be able to play perfect siege against these guys, like like full blown execute. So it's just like you gotta have to be able to get in their face, and like because they obviously they know cheeky stuff too. They know the spawn peaks. They know like the nerd stuff to get kills back on you. So like you have to just like be willing to play with your team and play with your trades against like guys like these. But then like there's other teams that you'll be able to play like fundamental siege, perfect siege, who people who aren't like as aggressive on you. But against these guys, like all that really it takes is like good teamwork and being able to trade out.
Yeah, and speaking of, how was your preparation going into this game? Really, this is your first game day with this five. So, what kind of preparation did you do, kind of for today?
Yeah, so we had like no VODs or anything on them. We had like no info on like how they're going to play on that map. So we just went into scrims the last couple days, just trying to get down the fundamentals because we know how we can play aggro and like team play. Just enforce like the basics of Siege, basically like team play stuff like that. Since we have like no info on them, we knew that before this game. They're obviously another like aggressive team because like T3 teams. I don't feel like they're stick to the same plan. Just play execute. Not many plans I feel like in T3. So you have to. We just prepped by like really getting our like cons and team play up, and if we're gonna do something, it all has to be together. That's just the biggest thing on how we prep for this game. Like if you're gonna do something, make sure you have somebody with you, or just make sure you say that you're doing it. That's just probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, and last thing, you did tell me yesterday, you've now kind of with Spiker going obviously to Pro League. You've kind of taken the reins of full IGLing at beginning round, mid round, and late round. I was kind of not necessarily like worried about it, but interested to see how it goes, just because I feel like with every roster, you've kind of not necessarily been the star player, but numbers wise, you've always been so good, and it obviously went well today. So, was there any kind of change that you needed to make sure that you could IGL very well while also still being just as impactful on the map, or was it kind of just like you're kind of just in that flow state where everything's just going your way anyways, playing just a normal?
Uh, yeah, I do feel like I am in that flow state, kind of no matter what. But I feel like on previous rosters, I've more been like the lurk player, like the player to kind of be hitting the back. Like I'm very by myself now. I feel like a lot of the times I still am, but like a lot of the times I'm more with the team, trying to help the team. You know, like bringing like the operators, like the Thatcher, not so much like kind of playing an entry. But on some maps, like we do have like 3 different entries, like me, Ambi, Reverse, and even Kento. Sometimes like we'll swap around the entry. So like it's more just the attacks that we run, they're aggressive, so therefore you don't really need to kind of take like a big step back. Obviously, on some points I'll need to take a step back on like like operator and like role wise like that. But I feel like just like the way that we play with this team and like the amount of like aggression that we have, there's no real like big step back of like me being able to call. And I feel like also everybody on my team is also like willing to call like mid round stuff like that, and even late round, because sometimes I'll be dead because like I'll get the first pick and then like I'll die, and then I'll just be on cams. But we have 4 other really good players who can also like be able to call like mid and late round, because like using their info, using what they see, they're still able to call, because like they're pretty smart. They have good game sense, so they can also like call with me. But it's usually me who like calling the take and like basically the idea of like what we want to do that round.
All right, and last thing before we wrap this one up, anything to say to anyone in specific, other teams, fans, anything you got to say?
Obviously, shout out my team for putting in the work. New roster. We've been putting in a lot of work lately. Shout out Arial. Shout out everyone on there. Rusty, Karma, Chowder, all them. Shout out Yuki Gamers. I think one of them got 1 kill in 12 or in like 10 rounds. Your aim trainers won't help you against the best T3 team. So yeah, there we go.
All right, thank you. Good luck the rest of the way. It's a long season to go. A lot of teams that are in here, so good luck rest of the way, and nice win today.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Humble as always, and look at those numbers, Galu. Look at those numbers.
That's a fair few kills. Also has double the kills of the next highest on Mixed It, so pretty good when you consider he's also playing to sort of give the team that direction in IGLing. 4-0 on entry. I mean, a lot of these entries going in favor of Academy, and that's what you'd expect, right? Like they said, they like to play aggressive, and I think it paired up really well into Mystic, who wanted to go with a lot of these roams. You see 2 players, both Big Guy and Skunky, having Oryx as their favorite operator. Like, that tells you all you need to know about this defensive lineup, right? They were trying to play right up in your face, go for these aggressive roams, and you go up against Arial Academy, who are happy to play lots of entry, who are happy to get aggressive and look for these picks early on. Play for gunfights, it's going to happen. And I mean, fantastic performance from Ashen in particular, but the rest of the squad all kind of picking in the work when they need to. A lot of high costs there. Great performance from them.
Yeah, when Ambi is your lowest rated player with only that 40% cost, you're doing something right, just because you know how good of a player he can be at times. And we kind of saw the difference of this roster. I don't think Arial Rise Academy has ever had. Obviously, they're very experienced at this T3 level. They scrim pro teams all the time. Played against some of them on game day, especially in SCS. But Kento bringing in that experience at a major level is big. And even though Reverse and Amp may not have as much experience, they've kind of been at the top of T3 as well. Like, with S2, maybe at a different, time period, they're the best team in T3 if Arial Rise, doesn't exist. So having an ability, an Amp on that support who can just play gun skill so well and be able to shot call Reverse, who's another entry. They basically have 4 entry players, so they're so flexible on what they're able to do. And dropping 3 rounds, not the worst case, but I think this team, as we go on through the season, can be more of a spectacle, a pretty scary thing. And I'm also very interested to see how their map will look.
Yeah, I think map pool will be the most interesting thing for me, mainly because I really want to see more Skyscraper and Theme Park come through. Please, guys, I'm begging you. I want to see it get played. But yeah, I think ultimately really good opening performance from them. Really nice to see just the team gelling well together and being able to play off each other. You constantly see them looking for opportunities to play back to back, to get trades with each other, to put their teammates in positions to get big plays off if they need to as well. That's really good to see, and I think speaks well to the longevity they'll have through the season.
Yeah, and once again, going back to Mystic, just so we're not just sitting there talking about how good Arial Rise Academy is, they definitely had their bright spots. Obviously,
Yes.
I think they just get out in that. It's not even just the gun skill necessarily, because the gun skill is there. We can talk about it, but it's kind of that difference of team play. It's glaringly obvious when you see it, just because the way that Arial Rise can work picks, entries, the way that they can execute. It was just a difference right there, and Mystic's still able to keep it close, but they kind of have to take away from this game. How can we set up those crossfires? How can we trade a little bit better? Because think about it, man. Like, winning 1v1s against these guys, not necessarily the easiest thing to do with the way, that their mechanical skill is. Imagine having to kill 2 of them at once, getting the trades. That's not an easy thing to do. So if they can kind of figure it out, kind of switch their game a little bit, try and get into that spot where they can, take these 2v1 gunfights, even 2v2 gunfights, get everything together, play cutoffs a little bit better, make teams more uncomfortable, because the way that I kind of see them play is they're kind of just squaring up on you, trying to take these fights. And against worse teams, that's going to work. But against teams that are better than you or around your same level, it's not going to work as well, because you're not just going to be able to dominate in those 1v1 fights, because you're not just going to get those 1v1 fights the whole time. So that's kind of the way I see that. But that kind of wraps up for the first game. We're going to go into a little break.